Ukraine's Chief Justice is in Canada this week describing the situation the judicial system in that country faces as Russia's war wages on. His Canadian counterpart is lending support, pledging to help, and they're both on the show here tonight. Richard Wagner is Canada's Supreme Court Chief Justice, and Vsevolod Kniaziev is Ukraine's Chief Justice. They spoke earlier this week with Vassy Kapelos.
Hi to both of you. Thank you very much for making the time for this and for coming into studio together. We really appreciate it. Chief Justice Kniaziev, I wanted to start with you and ask you if you could identify for us and for everyone watching what the biggest challenge to the application of justice in Ukraine is at the moment.
Oh, we have a lot of challenges. I just cannot tell about the biggest challenge because the courts are destroyed, the court premises are just demolished, and the judges are being imprisoned, and judges are in occupied territories, judges being tortured, judges cannot leave the occupied territories, judges are without their homes, and we have so many problems that I just cannot. What is the main? The main problem is Russian aggression and all the we have because of it.
Is there any way, I mean, the way you describe it makes it seem if that were happening here, I can't even imagine the effect it would have on just the ability to run a courtroom, for example, or to proceed with all the legal proceedings that take place on an average day. Is there any way to describe for us or to quantify how much less you're able to do now compared to February 22nd?
It's very difficult in judiciary now in Ukraine because we have so many problems. I told you about it. Like we have missiles attacks every day. Like our judges are sitting in the courtroom, and when there is air raid alert, they should go down to the basement together with the defendant and with the prosecutor, and with the lawyer sitting in a small room for hours, waiting until the missile attacks finishes. And our judges are afraid of it, but still they continue to administer judgment. They continue to consider cases. We have a lot of cases now because of war crimes by done by Russian soldiers. We have to consider those cases and to bring to justice those soldiers who did all the atrocities you have seen on TV, you have seen in internet, torturing our people, killing our people, destroying our houses, and doing all of this. So we have just to run justice. We have to do our job.
Chief Justice Wagner, I know that you and your colleagues are doing specific and tangible things to help support your counterparts in Ukraine. But just as I listen to Chief Justice Kniaziev kind of outline what justices and judges in that country are enduring, I'm wondering what you're thinking of as you listen to that, how much, what they're up against just to do their jobs.
It's incredible. I mean, it takes a lot of courage and commitment for our counterparts to be able to release judgments, to release justice in those terrible circumstances. So it's hard to understand for us. But I'm very proud to stand with the Chief Justice Kniaziev today, if only to make sure that he has our full support of the Canadian judiciary as one branch of government.
What is the manifestation of that support? What kinds of things can you and your colleagues do to, obviously vocalize that support, but then beyond that?
Yeah, well, as Chief Justice of Canada, I'm also I'm the chair of the National Judicial Institute, the NJI, which provides training and education to all federal judges in Canada. And we like to think that we have one of the best educated and trained judiciary in the world, and we export our expertise. So we were in Ukraine for the last 15 years, working with judges over there for their reforms, to provide advice for managing conflicts of interest, judgment writing, gender equality, to provide support and advice and in their reforms. So we want to continue that support, and that we can do when the circumstances will allow it.
In Chief Justice Kniaziev, those reforms are not just, I guess that there's a bigger picture to it all, and that is how Ukraine fits into things like the EU or other international bodies. What is your perspective on the significance or the importance of reform to the judicial system in Ukraine? And is it still important even though you're in the middle of all this?
Yes, first I would like to thank Chief Justice Wagner really for many years of support for Ukrainian judiciary through the National Judicial Institute. They help us with the reforms, and I would like to tell you that reforms do not stop in Ukraine even during the time of war. We do everything to reform our judiciary, to reform other fields of our government and politics. This is like reforming the judiciary is like the condition number one on entering to the European Union. It's like number one in the list of requirements. So we have to go on with these reforms. And our international partners do so much to help us reforming judiciary because we have like commissions to reform our High Council of Justice and High Qualification Commission of Judges. And this commission, they consist of half Ukrainian members and half members from international, from other countries. And we go on with the reforms, and these commissions are working, and we are forming the High Qualification Commission of Judges according to the world democratic standards, the High Qualification, the High Council of Justice. Everything is formed now according to the requirements of European Union.
Has the process of reform been challenged or set back by what the judicial system has endured during this invasion?
Sorry, yes, right. The process was stopped a bit during, like, from February till May, when Kiev was just circled by Russian forces. There is no way out from Kiev to Kiev, only one way, and it was unsafe to travel. So it was a small, like, delay in making the reforms. But in May this year, we continued making all the reforms, and they are going on now. So it's really difficult because international experts, for example, they cannot travel to Ukraine. They are afraid to be in Kiev, so they are only taking part online, and they have different time, and we have a lot of other problems. And now our national members, our national experts, they just also are afraid of missile attacks, and when it's air raid attack, everybody should stop doing his job and go to the shelter, and it also makes it difficult to continue all that what they are doing. But still, we have a great desire for reforms. We want to be with the democratic societies, with the democratic world, and it's Ukrainian choice to be with democratic countries, not with Russia. And this is the choice of Ukraine, and we're paying a high price for our choice. So that's why we need the full support of all our partners of Canada, the United States, European, Great Britain, because it's our choice to be with the democracy. And Ukraine became like an outpost of democratic values now.
It is, as you're speaking, I'm thinking, Chief Justice Wagner, of the significance of the judicial branch or system, whatever you want to term it, to the idea of democracy, and how that is so very much at the center of what is being fought in Ukraine. Your thoughts on that? Well,
an investment in judicial training is an investment in the rule of law and democracy. And so that's why it's so important that those reforms to which the Chief Justice was referring to resume as soon as possible. And that's why the education, training of judges is so important, to make sure that people will keep their faith in the institutions and therefore support democracy and the rule of law.
I think also, and just final question to you, Chief Justice Wagner, that idea of the rule of law, it's a term that we bandy about many times on this show in a political context, and people talk about in this country. The experience of Ukrainians seems to, almost not change the meaning, but the significance of it. Like, it means something so much there. What do you think about that?
And you know, we're not immune to any attack on democracy, the rule of law, l'état de droit. And that's why we should not take anything for granted and always work to protect our institutions, to defend our institutions, and to promote our institutions. And that's what the courts are doing in Canada. That's what the Supreme Court has been doing for the last couple of years since I've been chief, to make sure that we communicate directly with the population, so that population will know about our work, will understand our work, and that's one reason why they will keep their faith in the institution.
Do you worry about the level of faith? I promise I said last question, but now that you said that, it made me think. Do you worry about the level of faith in those institutions at this juncture in this country?
I think we are in a very favorable position. I think that in Canada we have a strong democracy, but we have to defend it, and we should not take anything for granted. So that's why we have to work and find ways to to communicate with the population.
Okay, well, I want to thank both of you for making the time to communicate with me and our audience today. Thank you, Chief Justice Kniaziev and Chief Justice
My
Wagner.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.